how are you guys? I'm Kelly Dewar, and I'm here with Rachel Jones, and we are here to talk to you guys about empowering foster caregivers and helping them market pets from foster care. It is a topic that is pretty near and dear to our hearts. There will be a presentation, and then there's going to be some time for Q&A. We've put a whole bunch of resources in the chat. Pretty much everything we thought of that we're probably going to end up talking about, we put in there, so take a look. We've wanted to do this presentation for quite a while, and I think that the crisis right now made it happen a lot quicker than it might have, which is a really good thing because shelters have put so many pets into foster shelters and rescues lately that our foster programs have grown immensely very quickly. And now we're kind of realizing, oh gosh, we've got to go back and fill in those supports. So this is one of them. Pima Animal Care Center, where Rachel works, they have a really great system for automating the process and getting that material and getting it and using it. So Rachel's going to tell you some really neat stuff. Also, our shelters kind of have a lot of shelters and rescues have cleared out a lot of the pets. They're in foster care, and we're realizing as well that without pets being in the shelter, it can be really hard to market unless your fosters are giving you material. So we're going to talk a little about that. Rachel?
Hi. I'm Rachel, the adult dog foster coordinator for Pima Animal Care Center. And if you know me at all, you are probably sick of this story I'm about to tell you, but I think it's important and I like it, so we're going to do it again. So in 2017, when I started my foster journey, I conned my boyfriend into short-term fostering a dog to gently ease him into the idea of adoption. And previous to my foster orientation, taught by the lovely and amazing Sarah Aguilar, I had no concept really of what foster was or what it could be. So she paired me up with Ventura County Animal Services longest stay resident, Louie. He was a senior dog reactive pit mix who'd been at the shelter for over 500 days. And I wasn't excited about it at all. So I brought him home, and this is pretty much what he did. He wouldn't engage with me at all when I first met him. And when I brought him home, which at the time felt to me like, oh, he doesn't like me or care. Why am I taking him at all? It didn't occur to me that he was just shut down and depressed from living in a kennel for so long until the next day when he'd slept off about a year's worth of shelter stress and woke up the hammiest, most engaging doofus on planet Earth. We learned that he was completely house trained. He knew all of his basic obedience. He loved to cuddle and spoon with any human that would let him on the couch, on the floor, on the bed, with anyone. And generally everyone was pretty happy to oblige him. The only time he ever stopped smiling was in his sleep. He had farts so potent it was criminal. He flirted with all the ladies. There he is hamming it up with my teammates. And he just was the best dog in the whole world. And because we learned all of this about him in foster, he was adopted after only a week and a half with me. He was not this dog in a shelter at all, and no potential adopter meeting him there could have guessed that. So because of foster, he just celebrated his 3-year adoptiversary with an amazing couple who spoiled the snot out of him. I love talking about Louie because he so perfectly encapsulates how powerful foster can be. And right now, a lot of organizations are understandably panicked because all of their pets are in foster, and historically what that has meant is that they sit there idly for months and don't get adopted, putting a strain on the system. But Louie taught me that that doesn't have to be true at all. And he's not a one-off either. We just have to change the way that we think about foster. Don't see it as just a life-saving necessity right now, but also as the huge marketing opportunity and catalyst to adoption that it is.
Thanks, Rachel. We're going to talk real quickly about some marketing strategy. The first thing, the main goal of any type of adoption marketing is to make an emotional connection between a potential adopter and the pet that you are promoting. So always look at your marketing in that way and teach your fosters to kind of look at it in that way. If is the picture that they have or the write-up, is this going to help somebody make an emotional connection to their foster? Inside the shelter, this is Smitty. He is a evil little Chihuahua who is now mine. He was in the shelter for quite a while. Pretty much looked like this all the time. You can see how stressed he is just by looking at him in the picture. He was basically known as the tiny dog who you would, if you try to put a leash on him, you would no longer have fingers. But he was just super stressed. And in the shelter, it can be really, really hard to get pictures and marketing material on dogs because, like Louis, you couldn't really get to know him in the shelter. His behavioral repertoire was like a fraction of Louis, and so in the shelter, a lot of pets they look stressed. There are less opportunities to get them, to put them into good situations where you can have different backgrounds and different different looks on their faces than one like this one here where the dog is stressed. So since their behavioral repertoire can be so small, you can't really get to know them as well in a lot of cases. This is Smitty here at home. The first morning I woke up, he got up and he came over and he kissed me on the nose. And I was like, that was it, done. The thing about foster care is that you are able to see who these dogs and cats really are. They can change a lot from foster care, in foster care because they are comfortable and they don't have the stress. You also have these situations where you can put them in different, situations, different backgrounds. You have pretty much like infinite options for taking pictures of these guys when they're in foster care as well. So I'm not sure if any of you have talked about the Fairfax Behavioral Foster Study. I'm just going to go back to this for one quick second. So the study had 51 dogs in it. Kristen Hassenauerbach did it in about 2015. The study was a year and a half, and the dogs all got adopted, I think an average of 3 weeks from the day they went into foster. These were dogs who had certain behavior issues, who could have sat around in the shelter for another year or two. But the way that they marketed them was kind of mind-blowing when I really sat down and thought about it. Traditionally, what we do when we have foster, what we've done in years past is that we'll put a pet into foster, and then they're safe. Then you tend to not worry about them anymore, and you focus on marketing pets. You focus on marketing pets who are in the shelter and who need to get out like right now, which is fine, but it's a lot harder to get a pet adopted if they're really stressed out in the shelter because it's hard to get to know them. So during the Fairfax Behavioral Foster Study, one thing when we were going back through the data and looking at it, we started to realize something really interesting. We had 51 dogs in the study, and out of the 51 dogs, 80% of the dogs were fostered by one of 5 people. And I was like, wow, there's something going on here. It was really interesting because in a year and a half with a behavioral dog, you could have 1 dog. But during that time, I was one of the fosters, we took 18 dogs home. And what they did was that they marketed the dogs heavily. They separated marketing and adoption counseling, and they got us to provide marketing material. So they really were able to get these dogs in front of people a lot, and the turnover was really quick. As fosters, it was amazing for us because you have a dog for 3 weeks, you're not as attached usually as you do if you have a dog for a year and a half. So that was it was great for us, and it also kind of basically expanded their foster pool almost infinitely. So the strategy was fosters provide marketing material every 7 to 10 days. You can, we'll go into setting expectations in just a sec. One thing that they did in Fairfax and that I would recommend, it would be great if you could market every pet in foster care every 7 to 10 days. Some shelters are just too big for that. There's not enough social media to be able to do it all the time. So think about focusing on fosters who have a track record of successful adoptions, whose house is like a revolving door. You know, when they get one dog adopted, they'll be back the next day for another. And low-hanging fruit, like the, dogs who are in foster who could be adopted tomorrow, and just lightning quick. So you can kind of start at least with a targeted population of fosters, start turning those, marketing those dogs in foster and getting them out so that you can put more pets into foster.
When I got to PAC, I had different expectations of caregivers than were realistic. And it was because there was a key ingredient to Louie's success I didn't recognize until I became a foster coordinator myself. When I came to PAC, the first thing I did was ask everyone to email me marketing material for their fosters, and I inadvertently made all of those people very angry. I learned that you need to set marketing expectations from day 1, not day 33. So in my foster orientation with Sarah, foster marketing was a quarter of the entire presentation. I left the shelter excited to blow up social media because the marketing connection was made before I even had a foster. Now, if you barely touch on marketing or don't explain why foster is such a great opportunity for it, and then ask caregivers for photos and write-ups seemingly out of nowhere, it can feel a little bit like a slap in the face to them. They've been caring for your animal in their home, and the thanks they get is another job to do. This is Louie, his first day out of the shelter. So once that message from the caregiver base came across loud and clear, we started building foster marketing into everything we could, almost like the gentlest little brainwashing campaign. We added a marketing overview to the adult dog foster orientation. There's a link to it in this slide, and there's also one in the chat, I think. If you'd like to check it out, you are all more than welcome to. And then we started sending every foster home with a marketing manual that I put together that's just kind of like a much smaller version of the Maddie's Fund mega comprehensive foster marketing guide. So then we created my precious child, the foster resource page. We'd be dead in the water without this, but I'll talk more about it in a little bit. It has links to everything from Maddie's online foster marketing course to how to adopt out from home instructions for foster caregivers. And it's just an easy web page they can bookmark in their browser and visit for any general question any time of day. In fact, because this page has been so helpful, we just created one for staff, just to keep track of like the rapidly expanding collection of daily changing COVID protocols. And if you don't have a website on hand you can use, there are some free web building options like Wix and Squarespace that are super user-friendly. I've used them a little bit in the past. I haven't really recently, but there are free options out there. I heavily recommend creating a foster resource page if you have a foster caregiver base. So we also just from the get-go, we encourage our fosters to share discoveries and photos with us, even if it's not intended for marketing, to share with us and each other in our foster Facebook group, which nets beautiful marketing material on accident all the time. This dog is Loot. He was put on a deadline last year because he was so over threshold in the shelter environment, he was barely handleable. In foster, he is the gentle puppy whisperer, and we can use that to market him. Even though this picture was not intended as marketing material, it's a great discovery, and it already comes with cute photos we can use. And most importantly, we never shut up about foster, both publicly and internally. I mean, if you've had a chance to look at our Facebook page anytime, it's foster, foster, foster. It's ridiculous. If we're not marketing Peak and Night, we're celebrating Gia's foster fail. If we're not thanking Imelda for adopting Rocco, we're posting extensive lists of all the animals who were also adopted from foster recently. Talking about it all the time really helps people start to make those positive connections between foster, marketing, and adoption and start to internalize the mindset. So incorporating these things has created a huge culture shift for us in the last 2 years. Now, almost every time I hop on Facebook, I see a post about another foster that's been adopted. Like I just hopped on the other day, and each of these are within a day of each other, April 16th, 17th, and 18th. And this is all without me having to micromanage anything, which is the dream. So setting expectations and then making those expectations borderline inescapable, but in the gentlest way possible, sets your caregivers up for success, which sets your pets up for success, and the cycle starts to take care of itself. So one of the hardest things for me to accept when I got to PAC was that not everyone is like me, and as much as it hurts to say, most people hate marketing. They want nothing to do with it. So when I first started, I tried to set everyone free to market to their heart's content, assuming they were like me, and it was not received well. Not only did they have no idea what I was talking about, but they wanted me to market their pets for them. And they were right to an extent. Caregivers that enjoy marketing should be allowed to go bananas with it, but that's going to be a minority of your fosters, realistically. We need to set up structure, processes, and resources that make marketing easy and as accessible as possible for those who want nothing to do with it, while still making sure that it remains a manageable caseload for ourselves.
We have a poll.
Oh, right.
So how many of your foster caregivers actively participate in the marketing of their foster pets? And how do you set the expectations that marketing is something that you need help from with fosters? I'll give you a sec to go through that. So how many of your foster caregivers actively participate in marketing their foster pets? The majority say under 25%. 34% say 20 to 50%. 10% say 50 to 75%. And a tiny little 7% say 75 to 100%.
Wow.
How do you set the expectation that marketing is something you need help with from fosters? Most people are saying it's part of their orientation and foster training, which is great. That's about 32%. Next is, several or all of the above. It's written on our webpage, 0%. It's written in an automatic email, 5%. It's written in our manual, 10%. Another way, 7%. Several or all of the above, 20%, and none of the above, 27%.
No, that's great that it's in a lot of the orientations. So I did not alert either of these beautiful people that I would be sharing their contact information with you, but Sarah's bored in Missouri and Josh lives to serve, so I'm sure it's fine. I'm going to talk a little bit about some cool stuff that we're doing with Chameleon shelter software in the following slides. So if there's something we discussed that you want to mimic or try at your shelter or rescue, and you're not sure how to set it up, Josh and Sarah are Chameleon wizards. I really don't understand how any of it works. It's sorcery to me. I just tell them I want to do something and they snap their fingers and it's done. It's magic. So automating emails will save your life. If you're not currently doing it, you are very likely using some sort of software that has the capability. We use Chameleon Postmasters and it works like a dream for us. I would bet that Shelter Love and Pet Point have some sort of ability to do this. And I've never used Boomerang personally, but I hear really great things about it and it's free from what I understand. Email is the primary way that we communicate with our fosters, and that is included in the online orientation, as well as told to everyone up front when they're at PAC picking up their foster. We send out a series of emails at certain intervals of the foster period, and there is a link to that in the chat, I believe. I can also post it later if it's not included already. But I have included a link to a Google Doc that has 3 of them. So at the 1 week mark, Chameleon emails them a personality questionnaire to answer about their foster. Writing a bio can feel kind of like pulling teeth for most caregivers and coordinators, but we found that most people are more than happy to answer a questionnaire about their foster pet because it just feels like talking about them versus trying to be creative and come up with something great to put online. It's just a very simple and direct way to collect important information adopters are looking for and to get an awesome glimpse of the foster's personality. We use a great questionnaire that I literally just ripped straight out of the 2018 AMPA handbook. And once we receive that questionnaire back from fosters, there's a few very easy and helpful things we do with it. And the first is literally to copy paste the complementary aspects into their web bio as seen here. Our shelter software updates our animal profiles on Pet Harbor. This is a screen grab of Pet Harbor, Pet Finder, and Adopt a Pet. And this is what our Pet Harbor profiles look like. It doesn't have to be flashy. It just has to be up there. People are looking at animals online all the time, and especially right now. So if you do one thing, get their profile updated and make sure interested adopters know who to contact about your foster animals, whether it's a staff member, a volunteer group, or your caregivers directly. So the questionnaire email also prompts fosters to send us photos they might have. If the photos are decent, we schedule a social media post and update their profile photo. This is literally just a Q&A, but because it guides the foster with questions, it collects so much more helpful information that can get left out of bios. And that's not to say you can't use these questions to craft a great bio either. We have some volunteers that will do that if I just forward them questionnaires. But just pasting a questionnaire, there is nothing wrong with that. So thanks to Josh, our IT wizard, we found a way to flag animal profiles so they come up in different categories that adopters may be looking for. This makes things way faster for people who know they specifically want an animal that has a proven positive track record with kids or other pets. We can also flag things like if they're housebroken, a couch potato, leash trained, and more. Chameleon can also automatically separate dogs in shelter from dogs in foster on this page, which has been super helpful for people wanting to foster specific dogs but being confused by the online selection. Really, Chameleon can do anything you want it to do. It's just not user-friendly at all. And this is just an example of what the page looks like when you click on one of those links. It opens up the selection of animals you chose, and then it lists their known flags on the thumbnail for each of their profiles. So just super handy, super easy. And then something very important that gets overlooked a lot is tracking. This is a Google spreadsheet that tells me who we need to nag for updated marketing material. Josh created a foster inventory report in Chameleon that can be sorted by foster type, and then I just copy it over into this spreadsheet, which is maintained mostly by a couple volunteers. And it can just tell us at a glance what marketing material still needs to be collected from which fosters and what each dog's behavior designation is, so we know which fosters maybe need more support with counseling interested adopters when the time comes. So this whole section isn't just dedicated to automation, so much as it is on how to make things way easier for you while also keeping them efficient, which brings us to foster Facebook groups. I've met some shelter and rescue workers who are worried about starting a group for their fosters because they acknowledge their caregiver base is maybe unhappy and they don't want to create a gathering place for that. But if you're worried about an unhappy caregiver base, you really need a Facebook group. Because when fosters are unhappy, it's usually because they don't feel their needs are being met. And by connecting them with other people that can sympathize and help them, you are servicing their needs much more thoroughly than you would without it. So this is Zadie's foster posting in the group for assistance with a dog intro. We could have done the intro at PAC. She might have had to wait a day or two, and it might have taken up an appointment slot that could have gone to someone else, but we could have done it. But because she had a group of experienced people to reach out to, a volunteer reached out, conducted the intro offsite, and collected adoption paperwork for us. So, and I know this is something that can be uncomfortable for a lot of people in the rescue and shelter world, but every organization, volunteer, and foster base is different, so you know your base and can make the best decisions regarding them. But this is something that really just finally occurred to me we should probably put up, since I was already having them get in touch with each other in the foster Facebook group anyways. And now that we have this support page that really just cuts out the middleman of contacting a foster coordinator directly for help with things, this past month has gone so much smoother than I possibly could have imagined it going. Because of our amazing fosters and volunteers. They really have stepped up in every way imaginable. And to create this part of our foster resource page, I just sent out a post asking any fosters and volunteers if they would like to be contacted directly about assisting with specific tasks that might be helpful. People really want to help right now, and a lot of the people that want to help also have some extra time right now, and I think we're crazy if we don't let them. We now have 3 foster photographers willing to take pictures that other people are terrible at. I'm sure plenty of you have gotten those like really blurry potato cell phone photos that you can't use for anything, but acknowledge the fosters at least trying. So we have 3 foster photographers. We have 2 volunteers doing offsite dog introductions and adoptions that has saved us probably cumulatively several days of one full employee's work. One is a previous adoptions counselor, and the other is a longtime dog and cat volunteer. So there is some screening before they go up on the page, but the help is really out there. All fosters can also find our updated adoption instructions here on the page, accompanied by all the paperwork they'll need to process one. Josh made us fillable PDF versions of the adoption paperwork, and we can accept online payment now, so most adoptions can be processed in just a few minutes over email. And this last one is new as of a week or 2 ago. As most of you are probably familiar, stuff comes up for fosters and animals have to return to the shelter all the time, often unannounced. So since it's especially important animals stay out of the shelter right now, we created this foster transfer board and set it up so that it's completely run by the fosters. Currently, with a lower shelter population, most of our in-shelter dogs that need foster are higher level behavior dogs. But with a huge surge of people willing and able to foster right now, maybe they're not equipped to take those dogs. But the transfer board has been very helpful connecting these pets with alternative placements, because a lot of the dogs or cats that need to transfer to fosters, maybe their family just needs to go out of town to stay with a relative, or right now it doesn't necessarily mean they have like intense behavior or medical issues. So there's a lot of very adoptable animals that we've been able to keep out so far just by having this foster run transfer board. And this is on Trello.
All right, we have 2 more polls. How do you collect marketing material from fosters? Email, Facebook or other social media group, Google form or survey, another way, several or all of the above, or none of the above. I'll give it a moment for you guys to answer. All right. Several or all of the above. Great. So let's see. 60% use email, Facebook, Google, or all of them. Just email, 17%. Facebook or another social media group is 13%. Google form or survey is 4%. And none of the above is 6%. So good. Most of you guys are getting material in some way. And then, all right. So has your organization conducted marketing training for your fosters? Yes or no? Super simple. No, 91%. All right. Well, that's totally fine because we're going to talk about it now. I think this is a really important thing to do. Most people don't kind of immediately understand how to market pets for adoption. And it can be really, really helpful to give them some ideas. When I started out as a foster, there was not really any guidance on this at all. And we kind of had to feel it out for ourselves. And so it took a lot longer than it could have. It could have been a really easy, quick process of learning, but I think it was definitely more like trial and error for a while. So online trainings, Zoom is amazing. And it makes it really easy for you to have little trainings online. We, at Lost Dog Rescue, I've been volunteering with, we've done several different marketing trainings. One thing that has worked really well is to get different volunteers who had kind of a skills in certain things to do parts of the presentation. So during this one presentation, we talked about, it was kind of a general marketing thing, but we had somebody from the Dog Venture field trip program on there to talk about the kinds of feedback that their team is looking for with marketing and pictures. We had our Instagram person on there to talk about Instagram. Our Twitter person was on there to talk about Twitter and how to work with Twitter. It worked really, really well. And I don't believe I have a link to the presentation, but if you guys want it, just email me. You're welcome to have it. But it was really easy, and it was great because we was able to break it up into several different little bits, which kept it interesting, but it also kept like one person from having to put together like an hour-long presentation, which was also very nice. We've also tried at several different organizations having a little training series in the foster and volunteer group, and that's been kind of neat. If you're an admin of a group, you can schedule posts to that group ahead of time. So we made up these posts, basically trying to get the fosters and volunteers to understand that when they interact with our main page posts, it really helps get these animals adopted. And it was really surprising to me how few of them understood, how it works. So there were like 6 different things that we talked about. One was like liking things and, sharing posts and things like that. And like all of these different little tricks. And I actually, like, in designing it, learned quite a few things. But it was really interesting because I hadn't realized that so many people thought that the volunteer group was a place where the public could really see it. And so explaining that, the volunteer group only has, this many people, but the main page has like 50,000 people on it. And it goes a lot farther if you're looking at our main page and sharing it from there, that kind of thing. And also free online classes. We just came out with a class for foster caregivers, and it's pretty short. It's on marketing your foster pet. Any of your fosters can take it. It was designed by me and Caitlin Quinn from HeartSpeak, which is a great organization. If you are looking for great resources for your fosters for marketing, definitely check out HeartSpeak. They have some really good downloads and, interesting things to make bios and things like that. All right, so this was kind of something that we thought of because once all the pets went to foster, for some reason, you had less content coming in, and we were like, we've got to be able to, have more content coming in so that we can put up. So we created a photo challenge, and there's a volunteer that like 3 times a week puts a photo challenge in the volunteer and foster group or the alumni group and solicits basically pictures and videos of certain things, which we then put on social media. It's worked out really, really well. And so we have this list. It's really been a lot of fun to do, and it's just kind of given them a reason to, send in pictures. Also, we had a lot of alumni do it. Today, I think she did the second one there. How are your alumni helping you get through the quarantine? And I think she put it up at like 9 a.m. and by like noon, she had 60 people write to her. So it was like an immense amount of material, which was awesome. All right, we are going to see a video.
Hi, my name is Tori Fugate. I'm the Chief Communications Officer at KC Pet Project in Kansas City, Missouri. And over the last few weeks at KC Pet Project, we have been really, really busy moving as many animals as we could out in foster homes. And we've moved so many out that we now have no available pets for adoption at our physical shelter. We've had to close our offsite locations as well. So we just have our main campus right now that just has, stray and emergency animals and things like that, and our hospital animals. And then all of our available pets are now living in foster homes. So we've had to have a huge marketing shift over the last few weeks. So now with all of our pets living in foster, we've had to emphasize and really shift all of our marketing strategies to pets in foster. And what we're finding is that, we have a lot of new fosters, new families that have not been involved with our organization, and they don't really know what the first steps are. So what we did is we first built a whole page on our website. It's kcpetproject.org/foster resources. It's a hidden page. Only the fosters have access to it and anybody who has the direct link. But we really built that page to start providing additional marketing strategies for pets, for the people that are taking home our pets. So we put up, how to take photos, how to write bios, any documents that we sent home with them that they may have lost in the shuffle getting that pet home. They're all on that page. So that was a really big first step and something that we've wanted to do for a long time, but never had the time. Then we were starting to think of fun, creative ways to market our foster pets. We started doing Instagram takeovers where we have a foster pet that takes over our Instagram page for the day. So that's been a lot of fun, and it just provides a little bit of variety of content. And then for us, just really, emphasizing the foster program. We want this to be the new norm. We want for families to get involved by taking home pets every day out of our shelter into their homes and foster. And we really want to try to break the cycle of just having available pets in the shelter and having just a few pets in foster homes. We really want to emphasize having, a virtual shelter outside of the shelter. And so we've provided additional staff resources to the foster program at this time to assist with that. And then we also have a lot of volunteers who are helping us collect bios, get photos. If they haven't heard from a foster, the volunteers are reaching out and making sure everything's going okay, answering any questions, basically being a mentor to our new fosters. So that's been another great way. But we're trying to, shift our entire marketing focus to the fosters. And so just repeated strategies, repeated messaging, putting out there on our social media pages. And it's really made fostering the cool thing to do in Kansas City right now, and showing those pets when they go to their foster homes, and then showing them when they get adopted into wonderful new homes. And so that's a few things that we're doing here at KC Pet Project, getting a lot of media attention, of course, because all the media needs a good story right now, and a happy story at this time. So feel free to reach out with any questions, and thank you so much.
Tori told me was that Thor, the cat that did the Instagram takeover, got adopted from his foster home after 126 days in foster. He was originally surrendered by his family because they had too many animals. He was super introverted when he first went to his foster home, and after a while, really blossomed to an inquisitive kitty. His foster mom is delivering him to his new home today, and she did the entire thing without Thor even having to come to the shelter, which is amazing.
This is Sheila. There's a question for Tori right now. Michelle wants to know how Tori organized the Instagram takeover.
I actually just asked our fosters if anybody would be interested, and had quite a few people reach out. And again, not having any insight into what everybody's social media pages look like from their personal accounts, just kind of handed over the reins to everybody. So we featured a dog and a cat. They've both had, the cat Thor got adopted after a long time, and then the dog has had a lot of interest. And so now we're taking a look at who all we have. We're running into issues now that our population is so low that every dog that we feature on social is getting like 30 to 50 inquiries. So marketing pets right now is a very, very interesting thing. So we're going to start targeting some more harder to place pets that have been with us a really long time, or that have behavior challenges while they're in the shelter, and seniors, and pets that might hang around a little bit longer.
That's awesome. One more question though. When you did the takeover, how did you logistically do that? Did you give them your password, or is there a way to do it through an app, or how did you work that?
I just gave it to them, gave them the password to the Instagram page, and then they logged in, and I just asked them to log out at the end. And I gave them a few pages that are really active here in Kansas City that are dog themed pages for some inspiration, and said, feel free to do quizzes and polls, and people like doing stuff like that, use GIFs, use stickers. And they loved having the inspiration to be able to kind of look at what we were hoping for them to do. But they were all understandably a little nervous to take on a page with such a big audience, but they did such a great job, and we're so excited when people were messaging us asking questions about the pets. So that was really exciting for them.
Awesome.
All right. Our first question is from Natalie, and this chimes back to early in the presentation. She wants to know how you can tell when a dog is stressed. So it might be worth it, Kelly, for you to go back to that original picture of Smitty.
Oh yeah, with Smitty here, he's kind of panting in a way. His face his muscles are real tight. His ears are down. Dogs who are stressed, they often they'll lick their lips. And also sometimes in a shelter, an animal just won't I feel like that it happens a lot. Either they're doing kind of frenetic activity, like spinning in their kennel or jumping up and down over and over, or barking at people when they walk past the front of the cage, or they just are a pet where you're like, you can't get to know them, where they just kind of like super aloof.
Yeah, like
And yeah, exactly. And I've found that those super aloof pets at home, they kind of are almost like they just have been waiting to bond so heavily with people. Sheila, and Rachel, any more thoughts?
Yeah, and it's not always like the obvious high energy too. We had one dog who was super low energy, and like you wouldn't have guessed, except that he'd go back to his kennel and he would just lick the walls the whole time he was there.
Yeah,
like it was super sad. There's a bunch of different ways.
And Crystal mentioned that fearfree.com is a great way to learn about stress in dogs and cats, and definitely agree that's a great website. And I like, Kelly, that you mentioned the panting, because that's one thing that I always notice in pictures, that a lot of the times when you see a picture of a dog looking like they're smiling and happy, I have a picture of my dog on my Facebook page like this, they're actually panting and stress panting, and they look happy, but they're not at all happy.
absolutely.
All right, let's jump on to the next question. The next question is from Candace, and she wants to know, can we share your presentation and resources with our volunteers, or should we make it shelter specific?
That's totally fine with me, Rachel.
Yeah, I think it should be open to everyone.
Yeah.
And our next question is from Kathleen. I actually think it's more of a comment. If you have a specific question, Kathleen, we can unmute you, I believe, so you can ask. Kathleen says, I am a foster caregiver. I automatically try to help find good homes if possible. More help in doing this is appreciated. So I think it's more of a thank you for the wonderful presentation. Do you have a specific question, Kathleen? And while we're waiting to see that, we'll move on to the next one and we can come back. And the next question is from Roger. Do you have specific training for fosters to make it easier when releasing dogs to the new parents?
I think that's a really good question. We don't do a specific training, but I've heard of a lot of shelters that have like grief support groups. I don't know if that falls in line with what you're asking, but I think it would be a good idea to have specific training in this realm.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree too. And I've certainly found that the Facebook groups help really well in this area, in that fosters talk to each other and support each other, and maybe having a specific group, whether or not people join that or feel weird about joining that, I don't know. But I found that the general Facebook groups where we're collecting pictures are also good for that too.
Totally.
All right. Next question from Catherine Armstrong. How do you suggest getting content from a foster who says they aren't very good with a camera? We have a cat foster who is having trouble taking a good photo of his house guest.
At PAC, we might be spoiled in that we have a lot of people that actually enjoy photography. But on our foster resource page, there's a section where we just list the direct contact information for certain fosters and volunteers that like taking photos, that the foster would be welcome. Well, I mean, not your foster, I don't know. But on our resource page, the photographers are listed there specifically so our fosters can reach out to them for help with specific things. So these fosters are happy to come over and take pictures of the fosters for them. So it's maybe worth just putting it out there to your foster caregiver base and seeing if anyone would be interested in just being like an on-call foster photographer. And
that kind of would apply more in real life. But I think even now, I would just encourage them to just try and send in some photos. If you have anyone there who knows how to use Lightroom, you could ask for a volunteer who and just be like, hey, does anybody here know how to use Lightroom? And send them all the pictures from the fosters who take pictures that are too dark or a little bit blurry, or could use some type of change after the process. That might be kind of a crutch until we get back to normal life.
And I would also add, as someone who also is not very good with a camera, to take advantage of the resources on HeartSpeak, because there's a lot of good suggestions there for someone like me who's not good at taking photos to do a better job at it.
Yeah, it's an amazing resource library if you haven't checked it out.
All right, next question is from Braylon. Sorry if I pronounced your name incorrectly. What's the best way to encourage fosters to participate in marketing material if they themselves are not very active on social media?
So I just started cutting our losses as far as expecting fosters to post on social media. If they don't have a Facebook account, or if they're not enthusiastic about Facebook, they're not going to post on it, or they're not going to be particularly talented at posting and creating that marketing material, which is why we sent out that questionnaire that we used to post on our personal Facebook page. And we get a lot of traction off our personal Facebook and Instagram, as well as just the Pet Harbor, Adopt a Pet, Pet Finder that Chameleon updates to.
Yeah, and I think too, so you could get, if you have like certain pets who've been in foster for a while and you haven't gotten marketing material, have a volunteer go through and, you know, contact those fosters. Hey, can you send us some new pictures? And just get them like via email or however that's easiest.
And then one other thing I would add to that is also you can have volunteers who are social media volunteers. So they're not necessarily taking the pictures, but when pictures come in, they're helping to broadcast them and spread them. And so having teams of people who support that foster caregiver, because there's lots of people who really like social media, right? And we just need to tap into them. All right, next question is from Liz. What technologies are you using other than Chameleon and Excel for a foster program? Canva, Lightroom was just mentioned, etc.
Canva is a wonderful resource for like easy graphic design, and it's free. It's just a website, canva.com. If you're interested in graphic design or just making pictures or flyers or posts prettier, definitely check Canva out. We also use Volgistics as far as maintaining our foster database. It's where they sign up and we collect their information. We use Trello for communicating which dogs need foster, which dogs are currently in foster. That's Trello.com. Google Drive is really good for shared documents. What am I missing, Kelly?
Oh gosh.
There's so many.
You've got so
There's
many.
so many options.
I think that's probably.
Jamie says we just started using Sorted, SORTD.
And I heard
It says it allows you to make Kanban, I'm sorry, my pronunciation, boards using emails. Kanban boards using emails. Interesting.
Oh, cool.
Like Trello's process. Awesome. All right. And next question is that, Rachel, you had posted a slide that said that where you talked about potential adopters can search for positive experience with dogs, cats, etc. Can you talk a bit about that language and why it doesn't say good with kids, which is easier for people to understand?
Good with kids is kind of it's a blanket statement, and if you adopt a dog out and say this dog is good with kids, and then they have a really rambunctious 3-year-old that jumps on him when he's sleeping and he bites her in the face, they can say you lied to me, you said this dog is good with kids, and he bit my kid in the face. If you say the animal has a positive kid history, that is fact, objective fact, whichever way you slice it. So you're just more covered. It's just more open and honest, and you have a less chance of someone being very, very upset with you if you say good kid history.
How are you connecting a foster with someone interested in possibly adopting that animal that has reached out via a social media outlet?
So previous to the pandemic, we were just asking everyone to email pac.foster@pima.gov. That goes to all of the coordinators, and we would maybe counsel a little bit via email and then forward it on to the foster. Currently what we're doing, we've reallocated a lot of staff to a lot of PAC is functioning as almost a call center. Whereas if you go to our pima.gov/adopt page, you will see the instructions for inquiring about animals, and it lists a dog survey and a cat survey online. And when you fill out one of those surveys, they're Google Forms, it goes to a shared spreadsheet with all of staff. And then a staff member is going to call you based on the dog you voiced an interested in, counsel you about that animal, and then if you both deem that it's a fit, you will forward that interested party's information on to the foster. And we have some like canned written email responses so that you're like giving the foster an explanation of what's happening. It's like, oh, we talked about this. If you could discuss this, etc. So mostly it's being forwarded via email after discussion with staff.
Yeah, I've seen it, the emails posted on the pet's profile, but again, that could be like kind of a privacy concern.
Mm-hmm.
So you could ask fosters to create like a separate foster email. If
if fosters are okay with it, I will almost always just put their email address on the profile. But always ask.
Thank you. And unless we get any other questions coming into Q&A, this will be our final question. And this is for Kelly. Earlier you mentioned briefly that marketing is in adoption counseling. Can you talk about that a little bit more and what you mean by that?
Yes, absolutely. So marketing is getting people, putting something out that gets people in the door to meet your pet. Adoption counseling is the counseling part where you like talk to them about the pets, any issues that they have and, whether they like kids and things like that. When you mix adoption counseling and marketing in a lot of cases, it can scare people away who might be perfect for that pet. And I've seen this happen. I've seen a couple of articles where they kind of used, they said it was an article in Real Simple, and it was called The 7 Dogs You Meet Online. And they basically took those phrases that we use, like, he'd be a great hiking partner. And then they wrote what it actually meant, and it was funny, but it was, they're not being, but it was surprising to me because they, obviously people kind of saw what that really meant. There are only a few things that we market using caveats. Just about everything we do, we market with just the positive qualities, even including ourselves, like in our resumes, online on like Match.com. And then the way that humans create relationships is you meet somebody, you start telling each other like positive things. And after you start to feel comfortable, then you start opening up about the negative things. And if somebody starts talking about the negatives in the beginning, it kind of rubs us the wrong way in a way, because that's the way we work. The only things that we use caveats in for marketing are alcohol, cigarettes, and medications, because they can kill you. And there is research that tells us that using these caveats, like which could be something like no kids, or this dog can only be adopted by himself with no other pets. But with cigarettes and things, the reason they use those caveats is because it's scientifically proven to keep people from taking them home. And so when we do a bio and it talks about, so-and-so is a really high energy dog. He likes to, go hiking. He needs, to be adopted by an active family that has no children, and no other dogs. And so those caveats, even if somebody would be the perfect family, they might be off-putting. Definitely, absolutely, you always need to talk about those things with the families during the adoption counseling. What's great with foster is that you have the foster talk, in a lot of cases talking to the potential adopter, and you also have the, your organization doing the adoption, or that. So you absolutely want to talk to people about any kind of caveat, any kind of behavioral issue, or anything you've seen. Just in the marketing, it usually can prevent them from potential adopters from writing in and inquiring.
Thanks, Kelly. And thank you so much, Kelly and Rachel, for this wonderful presentation today. And thanks to Maddie for allowing us to share all this wonderful information. And thanks for everybody for attending. It's been great to have you. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Bye.
Have a good night.